Hotel staff of Reddit, how often do you catch people nude in the halls? And what's your best story? I generally see at least one naked person a month. To be fair, my hotel is in the nightclub area, so everyone is usually fairly intoxicated. I've had my elevator turn into a softcore erotic studio on multiple occasions, but the one time that always stands above the rest is one time this guy was going down on this young lady. The elevator was still on the ground floor, and someone entered the lobby. After greeting the guest, I ran out the back to watch the security camera. This young lady walked in on the other two. He pulls his head out from under the girl's skirt, wipes his face, and smiles. I'm rolling on the floor, laughing my ass off. Another enjoyable one was this guy come to reception because he locked himself out of his room. He was completely naked. Normally, people try to get my attention in some subtle way. The guy just walks down 4 flights of stairs, walks to the desk, and casually says, "I left my key in my room." I hand him a new key and he goes to walk back up the stairs. Sees a few girls looking at him from outside, gives them a wave and a pose, then proceeds back to his room. The level of, I don't give a duck this guy had still impressed me. Commenter. Happened to me once in a hotel in Spain. I am a frequent traveler and had been on what I call my magical misery tour of some subsidiaries across EMEA, traveling for 3 weeks straight. Was one of the last days and arrived in Madrid late at night. Went to bed immediately and wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom. I sleep naked. Anyways, I must have taken the exact route I do when at home, but ended up in the corridor realizing where I was at the exact moment the door closed behind me. I searched across the hallway to find curtains or anything else to cover with, but was faced with the reality that I would have to go to reception naked, which I did, only to be greeted by 4 guardia civil, of which 2 female, and the receptionist. The guardia civil were there apparently to have a cup of coffee in the middle of the night, and much hilarity ensued. Story 2. Last night I was doing the night shift at the front desk. Usual boring night shift on my phone as usual. This git appears out of nowhere covering his junk with one hand, holding his room card in the other. He screams at me for a good 5 minutes saying his card doesn't work and he got locked out and it's my fault. He had his phone in the same hand as the card. This git didn't know that his phone demagnetized the card and that's why it's not working. I said something along the lines of, "Sir, you demagnetized the card with your phone." He apologized and I made him a new one. Happens once a month minimum. I'm working for a small hotel with low budget. We usually have the cheapest equipment, hence the cards that demagnetize themselves. Story 3. Last week, I had to shoo an amorous couple out from behind the dumpster. Our hotel has the worst smelling dumpster I've ever had the displeasure of experiencing. The thought of anything sexual going on back there is enough to make me gag. Story 4. This was about 5-6 years ago, but I'll probably never forget it. A couple having sex all morning in a room I was supposed to clean later on. You could hear them on the entire floor. After lunch, I see them leaving, both in business suits, both very classy, late 30s, both very attractive. I opened the door, and the room was trashed as if a rock star from the 70s stayed there. Crushed crisps, spilled booze, the sofa, the bed, the bathroom were such a mess. Those usual 20 minutes they give you for cleaning would never be enough, even for 3 people. They left a 40 pounds tip on the table and a note saying, "Sorry." Story 5. Been working 3 years as a night manager, and it honestly only happened once. Knocked on a room where I suspected that a guest was smoking on the room. He opened the door completely nude and casual. Commenter? After taking down the arms dealer, the night manager and the guest have passionate victory sex. He lights a post-coital cigarette. "Ha! I knew it! You're getting a deep cleaning charge on your bill!" Story 6. Finally one I can answer. I caught someone once. Well, I didn't have to catch them. They came to me. I worked night audit at a local hotel. One night/morning around 5 a.m., I was at the desk when the elevator started moving. At the time, we didn't have cameras, so I didn't know what to expect. When it stopped in the lobby, the doors opened, and I see a man with a cart looking slightly shocked. Then, from the blind spot from where I was standing out, stepped a man with a cigarette in hand, and nothing but a small towel around his waist. He looked pissed. He stormed up to the desk and demanded a new room key, all while yelling about how he got lost in the confusing damn rooms. I confirmed his room best I could given the situation, and sent him on his way. The poor man that was in the elevator with him looked like he saw more than I did and didn't want to talk about it. An hour later, the man came down to the lobby to check out and demanded a full refund for embarrassing him and for not clearly labeling the balcony door and the hallway door. I laughed and told him to call my manager, which he did later that day. Kicker is the room he was in had 2 doors, a bathroom door on one side of the room, and on the completely other side with a fire map, chain lock, and deadbolt the room door. There was no balcony attached to his room. Commenter. As a former retail manager, definitely. If they aren't happy and aren't being reasonable, you tell them to go home and chill out for a day, and then they can call you if they are still unhappy. Most people come to their senses and realize they're being an a-hole. A lot of people are determined to get free crap, though. Story 7. One time, housekeeping brought the front desk a bag of sex toys that were left behind. After 5 seconds of checking the system, I find that the guests are here for 2 more nights. Housekeeping ran back to put the bag where they found it before the guests came back. Story 8, not my story. But my brother manages a nice hotel that happens to be near a red light district. One day, he gets this tourist who books a double room for a month, ideally as far away from the main entrance as possible. Guest checks in, and starting on the third day, there's this conga line of escorts coming in and out of the guy's room. By my brother's own count, the guy's personal record is 16 different women in a day. That's not the crazy part. One day, guest comes to front desk with a woman on each arm and asks my brother if he could book an Uber. Brother obliges and books the guest an Uber. Guest then tips with an escort, as in full-on offers the girl up to him and says, "You want to have a go?" I sincerely hope nobody ever takes a black light to that room. No, he did not partake. He was on shift and working front desk at the time. In a lot of poorer countries, cash is still king. A lot of tourists don't want to mess around with tourist SIMs and the local cellular networks, so they ask the front desk at hotels to call an Uber for them. The Uber gets to the hotel, and the guest pays the driver in cash. And yes, taxis are a lot easier. But in this specific country, taxis are also infamous for running scams, refusing to take passengers, or marking up their fares with bullcrap invisible charges. Commander. I work overnights in a relatively small hotel, and at least 6/7 days a week, I hear people having sex loud in their rooms. Half the rooms have a balcony that overlooks the lobby, and those doors aren't soundproof at all. We had a man sleepwalk out of his room to the lobby, buck-ass nude. We had a woman show up in the lobby in her underwear. Her BF slap her out and stole her wallet with the room keys. And before I started here, there was a massive wedding that took place. And later that night, the groom killed his bride and himself in their room. Story 9. I used to work security at a large casino resort, and we got a call at around 3 a.m. one night about a naked and frantic woman running down the halls of one of our hotel towers. So we go up there and sure enough find a woman bawling her eyes out completely nude. We got her a towel from the linen closet so she at least had something to cover up, and then she calmed down to tell us she had met a guy on the casino floor and went up to his room, and he attempted to abuse her and got all her clothes off and scratched her up pretty good, but she fought like hell and got out of the room. Needless to say, the cops came and the guy was dragged out and justice was served. Oh, he had a black eye when we got him out of the room too. She whooped his ass. Story 10. Had two young, mid-20s ladies come to the front desk at about 2:30 a.m. wrapped in towels asking if they could take a swim. I told them the pool closed at 10 p.m. They dropped their towels and said, "How about now?" My reply, "Very nice, but you still can't use the pool." I still have the footage on VHS somewhere. Story 11. I used to work as overnight auditor for a hotel. One day, while I was doing rounds at 3 a.m., I thought I saw something moving at the opposite end of the hallway, and I was like, did I just see a naked man? This poor guy was sleepwalking butt naked while hugging himself. Our hallways are freezing cold. I approached him closer and said, "Hello, sir." He turned his head and said, "Hey." I was like, is he still asleep? 5 seconds later, I guess he realized what was going on. He said, "I'm so sorry." I gave him a rob from a nearby housekeeping closet, took him to the lobby to verify his identity. Obviously, he doesn't have ID on him. I gave him a room key and followed him back to his room to make sure he doesn't sleep on his way back or whatever. Story 12. A guy somehow managed to lock himself out of his room naked and had to come to the front desk to get another key. The front desk is separated from the room since there are 5 buildings each with a certain number of rooms, and he was in the one furthest from the desk. So he had to walk naked across the property. The saving grace was that it was around midnight, so no one was around. Also, I was sitting down and the counter goes to around chest high, so I just thought he didn't have a shirt on until he was walking away, and I did a double take as I got a good look at his flabby ass. Commenter? That reminds me of a similar story from many years ago. Me and a girlfriend are on a road trip and decide to stop for the night in this town in the interior of British Columbia. Pull into a motel that has a vacancy sign, check in, head to the room. We open the door, and there's this naked dude fast asleep on the bed. Whoops, we think. Head back to the counter and tell them somebody already has the one they gave us. Oh no, they say, it wasn't booked. That's the local homeless guy who likes to break into that room every time he SCS together enough money to get drunk so he can sleep it off. They gave us a different room, and off we went. We were pretty young at the time, and it didn't really occur to us to say anything then. But if something like that happened now, I'd be like, if you know some dude regularly breaks into that specific room, and you had other rooms available, why the duck wouldn't you just give us the other room in the first place? My second question would be, what the duck was wrong with the second room that you felt the drunk guy break-in room was a better first choice when we checked in? And then after asking those 2 questions, I'd get the duck out of there and go find another place to stay. Story 13. Several stories here. I worked in 2 hotels for 5 years. One was doing mattress flips, and I found a massive 2-foot-long fist sex toy. Guest called looking for it. I had to bring it down to the lobby. The owner of said toy was a regular, and in my mind, it explained the classic cowboy gait he walked with. 2. Got a call to fix a sink in a room where a bride and bridal party was getting ready. I knock on the door, and a topless bridesmaid answers and insists I come in. I go in. Literally every member of the bridal party, including the bride, were topless. I say I'll come back when they are dressed. They insist I fix the sink. I fix it, get up to leave, and they were all by the door. One of the bridesmaids asked me which one of them had the best boobs. I said, bride $100. 3. I got a call to bring towels to a room, knock on doors, and was told to come in. Enter the room to see a 400 pounds female getting pig roasted by two of the skinniest alien-looking guys ever, Jacob and Trevor 4. Walking through parking stairs towards laundry room, seen a guy muffler ducking a car, hands down biggest pen I've ever seen 5. Walked into an out-of-order suite, 2 floors, to make some repairs, and I head the upper part from the main floor. Upper floor has a bedroom and a small lounge. I open bedroom and see the 2 biggest Git managers having sex. 6. My personal traumatic of my hotel career? I get a call to work on this family's adjoining room doors in order to test the repair job I need to open and close and enter both rooms to ensure it is fixed. I explain this. No problem, they say. After 20 or so minutes, I test the repair. Walk into the room. I see the mom taking the longest, endless, most explosive diarrhea crap into the father's mouth. I verbally said what the duck. Couple's teenage daughter comes to look literally started vomiting all over the walls. They checked out very shortly after I informed my managers of the incident. Best part was the main manager, who no one liked, slipped on the vomit and did a header into the poop-filled bed floor when trying to maintain her balance. Story 14. I was working morning shift one day, and it was almost 3, so I'm getting ready to leave. The business center was right in front of the front desk, across the lobby. I'm counting money, and I look up to see Big Booty Judy getting pounded out on one of the computers and a guest with his junk out. Going to town! I was in shock. Right then, my coworker walks in and sees him too. She said, "Sir, this is a family hotel. Get to your room now. If you're reading this, thanks for handling that." Story 15. My uncle was the general manager of a resort up in Pennsylvania, and he told me a story about how a Little People convention came and had an event at the resort. The next day, the honeymoon suite was vacant again, so they rented out to this newlywed couple. They weren't in the room but 10 or 15 minutes before screaming was heard. It turns out the night before, there were 3 midgets staying in that room, and they all got pretty trashed. So trashed that one of them got naked and the other 2 threw him up onto the wardrobe cabinet. He didn't wake up to the cleaning lady, and so they thought the room was empty. The married couple screamed because they saw a pair of eyes peek up above the wardrobe as they were consummating the marriage. It's not every day you go on your honeymoon to find a naked midget above your wardrobe. Story 16. I used to work in housekeeping. This doesn't really pertain to the title, but I wanted to share my story. Was in housekeeping for about a year while attending school. Guy checked out in the middle of the night. This hotel was small and didn't have many staff. So in the middle of the night when housekeeping wasn't really needed, someone from the housekeeping was stationed at the front desk. Anyway, the guy comes to check out, and he's wobbling back and forth and burping whilst licking his teeth. I asked him the typical questions, how his stay was, etc. He said it was fine. He then leaned in real close to me, like uncomfortably close, and his breath smelled like pure crap. He goes, his voice fluctuating, "You might want to check out my room. Go ahead and keep my deposit." My heart drops, and I die inside. For someone to say that up front at a hotel, you know you're about to walk into some bad crap. I don't really know what to say to the guy, so I just stay polite and tell him no worries. We'll try not to keep your deposit if we can help it. I get someone else to cover the desk and walk up to his room. Open the door, and I have the stench of crap throttle me in the face, and my eyes legitimately start watering. I flick on the light, and there's crap all over the walls with happy faces drawn in them. Crap smeared all over the bed and the floor, same with the bathroom mirror. I'm not sure if he pulled a G-gallon and ate his own crap, but it seemed like it from his breath. It's the duty of Escorts on to clean up messes as they happen. I was a college kid making less than $6 an hour. I knew I would probably get fired for not cleaning it up. There was nothing that would harm me in there, just a lot of crap. I said duck it not worth, and told the person who filled in for me at the front desk that I quit, and I'm going to go work for the bar down the street. Owner asked me to work for him several times. So I start up my bar job as a waiter for the restaurant soon after, and what do you know? The dude who smeared crap all over comes in and sits down at a table. I don't know what to think. It was like seeing a nightmare. I go over to his table and act like everything is cool and serve him. Ducker remembers me and just goes, "I see you work here. Did you leave the hotel?" I responded saying I did, and just asked what he would like to order. He orders a beer and curly fries and gets up while the food is being made and goes to the bathroom. He leaves the bar after the bathroom. I go into the bathroom, and there is a smiley face with crap on the mirror. I duck and lose it and tell the manager to call the cops on this dude. Manager didn't think it was too much of a big deal and told me to just clean it up quick. In the end, I didn't escape his terror. Story 17. Here's a story. Keep in mind, I was an 18-year-old girl while working at this hotel. I've never seen a naked person in the hallway, But once in the lobby, a man at around 300 a.m. sat down on a chair and called his girlfriend. I was on the night shift, and I was sitting down behind a computer screen, so he would have only seen the top of my head if he looked over. But it was Sunday morning, and he was extremely drunk from a wedding. He was wearing a suit, and I was just keeping my eye on him. He then started having raunchy phone sex with his girlfriend or wife, and it was so raunchy. My jaw dropped, and I honestly didn't know what to do. Then a janitor came over, and we were sitting there flabbergasted. He then pulled his pen out and started pleasure himself. So I got up, walked over, and said, "Sir, you're in the lobby." He woke up out of his sexual drunker stupor, and I'll never forget the look of horror that came across his face. He ran to his room so embarrassed. Story 18. Been working in hotels for about 5 years now and have a couple of goodies. One was like 17 or 18 fresh in the industry working the minibar. So I have to check all rooms to see if they need anything. So I knock on this door like I do every day, knock 3 times loudly, and no answer. I go to walk in the room and I see a man but ass naked bumming another dude. Hard. Best thing about is they were so in the moment they didn't even notice me. Open the door, take a step in, and hurry out again. 2 was doing nights on reception. My duty manager asked me to go for floor check because he was busy. Not a problem. Happy to stretch my legs. I noticed the pool lights were still on and door was open. Afternoon shift manager was meant to lock it at 9 p.m. So I go in and I notice a naked lady sitting the edge of the spa pool with a man performing sex on her. I make myself known and they quickly jump back into the water. I suggested they continue in their room and pissed myself laughing as they left in the lift. I then told my manager and we both had a good laugh. That footage is now saved in the golden moments file of the security footage. So many more, but those are my 2 favorites. Story 19. I used to work at Great Wolf Lodge. I'd catch people having sex in the hot tubs quite often. It was always awkward having to go tell them to stop. Story 20. Didn't happen to me in a hotel, but rather a hostel on a class trip years ago. I used to be a sleepwalker, and it was quite the problem back then, as we had all had drinks. Now, I shared a room with a girl from my class. We had a nice night out, rambled about stuff for a good half hour, and then we passed out. I don't know why or how, but I woke up on her bed the next morning, and apparently this is what happened. I stood up, walked to the bathroom. Couldn't figure out how the door worked, so I gave up and laid back down, mumbled something, stood up again, tried one more time with the door, figured it out, went into the bathroom, stood there for about 10 minutes, came back, laid down, stood up again, tried to put my shirt on, went outside, came back in, shouted, "Honey, I'm home," laid down in her bed and passed. She was a real bro about it and didn't make a scene or anything. She, as far as I know, didn't tell anyone either. Story 21. I have sleepwalked occasionally, maybe 2-3 times that I know of. On one occasion, I awoke standing in a hotel hallway wearing just my undertrunks. Had no idea which door I'd come out of, no idea where I was. The place was completely silent. I had no idea what to do. Took me a minute or so to realize I was even in a hotel. Terrifying. Thankfully, 1, I'd chosen to sleep in shorts that night, and 2, my wife, to be, eventually woke up, looked out into the hall and found me. Story 22. Put myself through college working in hotels. For a good portion of that was the graveyard shift. We were hosting an annual meeting for the new sales employees for Bear Paint. They were always D-bags straight out of college who now thought they were hot crap because they had a corporate credit card. They also ducked each other's brains out the entire week. One notable couple had sex pretty much the entire night in one of our pool areas. I say area because over the course of the night, they'd go from pool to deck chair, to hot tub, to pool deck, back to the pool, etc. I was mostly stuck behind the front desk, but periodically my graveyard security guy and graveyard engineer, maintenance guy, would pass through the lobby and give an update. They're having sex in a chair, or they're having sex at the edge of the hot tub. But they weren't making any noise, and no one was complaining, so we didn't bother them. The more common wasn't necessarily seeing naked people, but the working girls. The pattern was pretty common. First, we'd get a call or 2 asking for directions. This was the 90s before smartphones, or even MapQuest for that matter. Then she'd ask to be connected to a room. Then the same woman would call asking where to park. Then a woman would walk to the lobby wearing a long coat, freshly done full hair and makeup at 2 a.m., and always carrying a big bag over her shoulder. And she'd ask where to find the same room number the caller asked to be connected to. Then at least 50% of the time, a guy would call from the same room asking where the ATM in the hotel was. Coincidentally, it was in the lobby with me, and either one or both of them would come down in robes or shorts and shirt. A bit later, the woman would leave with the same coat and big bag. But again, no calls or complaints, so I didn't give a crap. Let consenting adults have their fun. Story 23. The case of Underwear Man and the mysterious bathroom lady I worked night audit at a hotel 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. On this night in particular, we had a group of Native American construction workers who were excavating a site nearby for fossils. Anyway, in the night shift, you normally don't get anybody coming down except to rummage through our little market for Oreos or other snacks. Well, around 2 a.m., I see someone standing in the market in just his underwear. For context, the back office is next to the market, but you need a passcode to get through, and we have cameras back there, hence why I was able to see him. So I open the door, and this guy looks completely out of it. Like 1,000 yards stare in just his underwear. Weirdly enough, I don't smell substances or alcohol. He tells me he needs help getting into his room, that there's some crazy lady in there and he's afraid. I ask for some sort of ID to confirm if he's guest. He tells me his name and other matching information. Sure. Enough he's a guest in room 212. I make a copy of the key and then walk with him. But of course, I ask him about the lady because according to our files, there's no one else in the room. He confirms with me that it's just him. He tells me that a while ago he went to get ice in just his underwear, and when he returned to his room, he saw a lady in the bathroom. He tells me that she attacked him and locked him out. Naturally, I'm calling BS on all this, but just in case I got my cell phone ready to call 911. So we take the elevator and then walk over to 212. The guest looks mildly uncomfortable, but I press on. The key card works, and we get inside. Immediately, I check the bathroom while the guest hasn't even stepped foot in the room. I check everything, and I see no sign that anybody forced themselves in here. The guest looks confused, but shrugs it off. Weirdly enough, that was like a month into the job, and this guest is a regular. I would see him most mornings, and we never acknowledged what happened that night. Never acknowledged that I saw him in his underwear or that he looked like he was on something. Just every day, good morning, Mr. M, and our conversations never went further than that. Story 24. Well, not staff, but I stayed in a Sure Stay Plus. Basically, a Best Western branded motel. Earlier this year, when I flew to San Antonio to house hunt, I woke up in the middle of the night to the most god-awful shrieking ever. Opened my door, looked down the hallway, and saw what I will politely call a half-naked, no pants or underwear on, plus-sized woman trying to squeeze out a crap onto the hallway carpet. Recoiled in horror and returned to the safety of my room. But the shrieking went on for what felt like an eternity. No less than 5 minutes of this Snorlax trying to push out a painful crap right there in the hallway. I will never understand what could compel someone to just crap in the hallway, but I really don't understand why someone would choose there, of all places, to meet their constipation head-on. I asked the front desk if that was normal, and they said yes. Still can't believe it. Story 25. I used to work in Hash 1, currently American chain. Now I work in small city hotel. A nude escort running in the corridor screaming the guest was going to kill her. She screamed so loud she wake up entire building. The room is on the 3rd floor. I got calls from guest on 12th floor, and I could hear it clearly from lobby. The guest was intoxicated and went on vacation with his friends. He opened this room on the 3rd floor just to nail sex worker. Cannot speak very good English and demand us to call the police. Now, being third world denier Buddhist country, they outlawed all sex worker, but it is know that it's a common thing, so we cannot call the police, or they will get into deeper crap trying to help. So in the end, we had to wake up his friends and told them his crafty drunk escort situation in order to not escalate it. Turn out no one was killing her, but they failed to negotiate the price. Story 26. It's not uncommon at all, especially as a night auditor, to see someone sheepishly come to the desk, covering their bits as best they can and meekly ask for a room key. The best one was this bombshell woman, most likely a call girl as I'd seen her many times, usually with businessmen, walked right up to me as I was refilling the lobby coffee, nude as the day she was born, and asked super casually if she could have another key. She didn't show a hint of embarrassment. I was impressed with her confidence, among other things. Story 27. Damn it. I have an awesome story. I'll tell it anyways because it's a favorite of mine. I was working as a manager at a budget hotel chain when I was younger, and my executive housekeeper came into my office to tell me a guest who was supposed to check out today was still in the room at 3 p.m. This is pretty standard. People try to push their checkout time when they can. I was working on something, so I sent the front office manager to check it out. He came back down a few minutes later and said, "She answered the door naked and that room smells like crap. You're up." At this point, I was a little hesitant to go to the room and it was nearing 4 p.m., so I called the police to help me evict this guest. When the police officer arrived, we knocked on the door but didn't get an answer, so I used my master key to get in. The smell was indescribable. Absolutely ducking disgusting. We found the guest laying in the center of the bed, absolutely ducked out of her mind on something. She had crap smeared on her body and on some of the sheets. The police officer started asking her pretty basic questions like, "What is your name?" and "Where is your ID?" But she couldn't answer any of them. She just laid there staring at us while rubbing her naked, crap-covered body. The police officer threw her some clothes and tried to get her to dress, but she refused. While all of this was going on, I was standing in the doorway trying to figure out how the room smelled so bad when all I could see was a small amount of crap smeared on her. My staff was watching from the elevator banks, and they were telling me they could smell it from down there. At this point, the police officer decided to call the EMT because this woman was entirely incoherent and wouldn't answer a damn thing we asked her. He managed to find her ID amongst some glass dildos and syringes on the floor. After he'd looked around the room and called an EMT, he looked at me and said, "We have to look in the bathroom now." I had figured out that the smell was coming from the bathroom by this point, and just vigorously shook my head at the guy. I asked if I could leave, and he said he needed a witness in the room with him. This was before body cams, so I had to stay. That bathroom was my worst nightmare. Crap everywhere, smeared on every single surface. It looked like someone's ass had exploded in that tiny bathroom. The smell was indescribable, but if I really think about it, I swear I can still smell it. The EMTs showed up a bit later, wrapped her in a sheet, and put her on a gurney, all while singing "Let It Go" from Frozen. My boss paid 2 housekeepers an extra $20 each to clean the bathroom, and I went home and showered for over an hour. Story 28. Super VIP client and her girlfriend were staying in our hotel for a month and would randomly need food, drink, requests in the middle of the night. Myself, the other guard that works graveyards, and managers were the only ones who would interact with them directly, as per their request. So security guys would deliver their late-night meals, drinks, requests. Said VIP, and her GF would open the door naked, mid-sex, and accept the items. She would sometimes tips us, walking over to her cash and returning. No care that I could see her naked. Story 29. Late to the party, but I used to work front desk at a hotel that once a year hosted a swingers convention. We would rent out the top floor rooms to them, and it was a free-for-all. They all kept their doors open, and people would just run naked from one room to the next. We had cameras so easy enough to watch all the running around. The problem would come the morning. If they requested a newspaper, we would have to go up and deliver it to their door. Definitely saw many things. The worst thing with this was when we had a long-term person who refused to move rooms when the convention was coming. So in the middle of people running back and forth swapping was a little old priest. We got calls that night from the swingers complaining someone was praying loudly. Story 30. Worked for a year in a holiday luxury resort as a butler before moving to a front desk position. Rich people is not like normal people that I can tell. 1. We had to do lobby-to-room escorts whenever a guest came. I meet this couple and escorted them to the room, explaining all the facilities that we had. 2 minutes after I am done with that, I receive a call from my mates telling me that the guests that I've just escorted wanted to see me again. I then go to the room to find the smoking hot women in lingerie running for me to give me a hug, while the man watches and smiles. Every time I went to that room to deliver something, the women was almost naked and keep hugging me for no reason whatsoever. 2. Had so many times that guests called us to deliver more bathroom amenities and greeted us on the door naked with that "I bet you want, but you won't look down" look on their faces, males and females. 3. One time that I was covering the night shift, I got called to deliver an ice bucket to one room. When I opened the door, I found a guy and 3 escorts. The guy was so drunk, he told me to stay because he had pay for them, but he could only take on 1, so the remaining 2 were available if I wanted to. 4. The pool was open 24/7, and every once in a while when I was covering night, I'd get this couple running naked from their room to the pool, splash, and go back upstairs. No towelettes, no anything. They thought they were ninjas, but in reality, we got cameras on the corridors and on the public arenas, and it is really easy to catch them as there is not much to do overnight. Story 31. 12 years in hotel industry now and still going. Have seen a few things. We once received a parcel at the reception. Our manager didn't pay attention to the name written on it and opened it. He was as red as a tomato when I saw him handling a long, huge sex toy. We said nothing to the client, closed the box, put the box in his room. But he knew that we knew, and the checkout was a bit awkward. That was a guy. The housekeeping found a flashlight in a room. That lost item has never been claimed back. But this item quickly disappeared from our lost item room. I guess someone of the staff really wanted to try that. We had once a lady aged 35, 40 that was wandering in the room's corridors in a nightdress and holding a crucifix, mumbling a few words. We had to take her back to her room. The other clients were afraid. She was harmless, but she had lost her mind. In the area of the hotel, once a year, there was an erotic affair. During the night, I received a phone call asking for room service. I'm coming upstairs, knock the door, and when the door opens, I see photography umbrellas in the room, 5, 6 persons, 4 naked. And I'm standing on the doorway asking where I have to put the tray. Another room service, I go upstairs with the tray, hand the tray to the client. Then the girl comes outside the room and asks if I want to have sex. She takes my hand and wants to put it under her skirt. I stopped her. Then she proceeds to put my whole hand into her mouth and licking it. It was ducking disgusting. I calmed her down, came down, and washed my hands 10 times. The housekeeping found a stash of money in a room, with blood on a pillow and a knife under it. We called the cops. The client had already left. I still don't know what happened. We had a homeless guy who managed to find a way to enter the building and sleep somewhere in the hotel. He spent a few nights hidden somewhere under stairs. He had taken lots of duvet in the housekeeping stock, and he also took a few crap in those duvet. We found out he was there due to the smell. Story 32. I don't work at a hotel, but I'm in the military. Occasionally, when we are forced to travel to some random fort somewhere for training or whatever. When we do, sometimes we get lucky and are billeted in hotels. When we do, we are always assigned roommates, so the Army can save money. And I guess this guy wanted to jack it, but his roommate was in, so he goes to the staircase and is laying down in the middle of it. I walk in with groceries and I just see him, phone in one hand, pen in the other. Definitely pass that one up the chain of command. Story 33. I work for a very upscale, trendy hotel, and after every shift, we get a detailed report from the front desk outlining every guest complaint or concern. We discuss the overnight report in the exec meeting each morning. This happened a little more than a year ago, but one evening, the overnight manager at the front desk, let's call him Bob, gets a visit from a very worried and scared guest in one of our top floors with a balcony. The guest says that he woke up to someone in his room and going through his stuff. When he turned on the light, the intruder rushed out via the balcony doors. Guest wants to call the police, so Bob decides to go back to the room with the guest and a security guard. The elevator doors open and 2 very naked and very high women, models, escorts, party girls, stumble out asking Bob where they can score more substances. Bob now has to handle the naked women and the scared guest and a potential intruder in the building. Bob decides to get the girls covered up with extra bellman's coats, while he figures out what room they came from, and security goes up to the guest room to check for intruders. Apparently, the intruder was a crackhead from the shelter down the block, and was able to Spider-Man up the side of the building and up 7 stories. One of the girls jumps and sits on the front desk and proceeds to pee over the edge and onto the front desk's computers. The other passes out in the storage closet where we hold guests' luggage. I love working here sometimes. Story 34. I work as a receptionist. Once it happened that there was an old man, around 65, and he was the only one here. We have just 6 rooms, and it was low season, so not many people came. He went around the hotel all naked, and in the morning, breakfast time, he was sitting on the chair completely naked waiting for breakfast. Not a good view. Plus, it happened once that there were 2 girls that went for breakfast just with a long white shirt and completely naked under it. Story 35. Oh man, I got a decent one for you all. I'm not the best storyteller or writer, so bear with me. I used to work at the front desk of a hotel in Chicago. Not that exciting since it's more of an economical hotel. Mostly, we get a bunch of young people trying to party and smoke. Randomly, we have to call the cops for a fight or ambulance because some got too drunk. One time I was walking our do-outs, checking to make sure rooms have vacated, and I go into one that was kind of blocked by a bag or towel behind the door. After realizing they are still in there but not answering, I finally get the door wedged all the way open to find the dude butt naked on the floor in front of the bathroom door. Super freaked out, I hesitate back and forth on what to do. Do I touch this naked dude to see if he's dead? Do I call for help? As I get closer to him, I see a cord around his neck and start realizing, oh damn, he is dead. Shockingly, not the first one we dealt with. My team ends up calling 911 and getting the paramedics over here and actually bring him back to life, or so we thought. Since we were sold out that night, we kind of needed that room, and my manager made the bold move to clean this guy's stuff up so we can occupy the room again. That's when crap gets weird. This dude had a ridiculous amount of sex toys and products in his belongs. Dude comes back later that day, no more than 6 hours, for his stuff, and thanks us for helping, but also let us know he's really into asphyxiation. Story 36. Not a hotel staff, but definitely a good one. This happened a while ago in China, so an expat was staying at the hotel for a business trip. We call him Tom, for the sake of this story. Now, Tom is not a big drinker, but that night he downed a couple of cans of beer, lightweight stuff. His group finished up and went their separate merry ways for the night. Come the next morning, the group noticed Tom wasn't answering his phone. The reception couldn't reach him, so we had to open up the room with the master key. The room was trashed, almost like the scene from Hangover. The bathroom was flooded with crap and piss all over, same with the beddings. More importantly, he was nowhere to be found. The next logical step was to check the CCTV, and we luckily found his footage. But strange enough, he was right next to the lift and squatting down. Upon a closer look, he was squatting down for a crap, right next to the lifts. Moments later, he was nowhere in sight of the CCTV again. This is not good. A foreigner missing in China in the dead of winter. We had to call the police. Then a miracle happened, one of biblical epicenes and straight-up Christmas spirit crap. He is back, but he's not alone. Rather, he was escorted by a dozen of police officers, and he was clad in those thick military winter coats. The cops told us he was apparently found about 10 kilometers away from the hotel, wandering in front of a primary school in his knickers. Nothing but his damn knickers. It was quite a shock when the kids and teachers found this almost completely naked white man in front of the school gate in the morning. Morale of the story is crap. I don't even know. Story 37. I've got a great story about this, not a hotel worker. I'm in Vegas for my best friend's bachelor party, staying at a strip resort. We flew in out at 7 a.m., and my get friends were pounding double bourbons on the flight on the way there. Drink throughout the day, on next to no sleep, and my friend, the bachelor, gets too drunk. We're watching a March Madness game, and he's screaming obscenities at the players and other people watching, etc. We take him up to his room to get a power nap in so he can go out that night, and 2 hours later I get a call from hotel security. Apparently, my friend had gotten lost while going to the bathroom, locked himself out of his room, and was found hiding naked in the stairwells. The kicker, though, the reason they were looking for him to begin with, is we were there the weekend of a massive teeny bopper cheerleaders convention competition of some sort. Everywhere you looked, there were 25 little John Bennetts running around fully decked out. Apparently, the bachelor encountered a mother-daughter combo outside of his room, buck naked, and they claimed he was pleasure himself. Although I highly doubt that, he was probably just pissing in the hall. Anyway, my night turned into 2 hours of convincing hotel security to not press some sort of assault charges against my friend. Thankfully, I'm a lawyer and at least knew how to talk them down, and then finding a new hotel for him to stay at the remainder of his trip. He does not like it when we bring this story up. Story 38, maybe once every couple of months. I work at a more business-centered property, so it's mostly tame. But sometimes we do wedding blocks. One time I got called at maybe 1:30 a.m. after a big wedding party came back, most of them pretty blasted, to fix a bathtub. I knocked, and a guy answered in his boxers, with his wife passed out drunk in the tub. He invited me in to fix it with her still in it. She's drunk, she doesn't care. I respectfully covered my eyes while trying to get the plug to work. Not an easy task. Another time, I had to kick some people out of the spa and everyone was giving me lip except the one guy who was naked who jumped right out and showed me his tiny pen. I added, "And if we could make sure we have pants on too, that'd be great." I wish there was more casual nudity at my hotel because we can all have a laugh about that. But more of what I see is people coming back at 2:30 covered in their own puke, which is just depressing. And gross. Story 39. Not staff. Guest caught in nude. Travel a lot because of business, and I sleep naked. Once in Paris, I woke up middle of the night for a pee, and still sleepy, disorientated, walked into the hallway instead of the toilet, and the door closed automatically behind. My boss was staying next door, so I had to knock his door to call reception to bring replacement room key and borrow a towel. And I had to explain to receptionist what happened, which he was very understanding. And the next day during checkout, we learned that this was a gay-friendly hotel. This was only 3 months into my employment. And I still don't know what my boss thought seeing a grown man buck naked knocking his door at 2 a.m. Good times. Story 40. Question for other hotel workers like myself. When someone comes down naked, obviously without ID, how do you verify you're giving the key to the right person? I usually give them the benefit of the doubt if they know the room number and name, but even that worries me since that's not super hard info to find out, so any naked psycho could theoretically just ask me for a key to your room, and if he knows the room number and your name, I'll give it to him. I mean, I don't know what else I could do. I can't just follow them up there for confirmation since I can't really leave the desk for any long period of time at night. I asked my manager, and he always said to do it like I had been, so yeah. I know it's probably a really obtuse and not probable scenario, but I still think of the naked psycho killer every time I hand a key to a naked person. Story 41. Not a hotel worker, but pilot, so stay in a lot of hotels. One time springs to mind. Arrived in Zurich, 2 pilots, 2 cabin crew, everyone comes down for a beer or 3. Burger, beers, and eventually everyone heads off to their rooms. I promise this isn't a pilot shags crew story, BTW. After maybe 10 minutes in my room, head spinning slightly, I get up for that drunken piss that doesn't end. You know the one. Piss. Still need to piss. Try to piss. Drip, drip. Still need to piss. Try to piss. Drip, drip. Is this what it's like to be old? I've just resolved to put up with the discomfort and try and sleep when there's a knock at the door. Way. I think I'm about to be greeted by a lovely crew member in a dressing gown and not much else. A guy can dream. I look through the spy hole in the door. Naked man runs past. Okay, not what I was hoping for, but it's not me, so no harm, no foul. I mentally wish him luck and turn around back to bed. Door knock. Spy hole. Whom? Naked man. I put the chain on the door and open it a crack. A voice calls out, tentatively, "Mike?" I reply, "Bruce?" It's my captain. "You want a towel?" Oh yes, turns out he did the same thing I did. Got up to go for a piss, closed the bathroom door behind him, looked around and thought, crap me, there's a lot of doors in this bathroom duck. All he knew is that I was on the same floor as him. So he'd spent the last 10 minutes knocking on every door and running away, hoping I'd answer. This guy flies jets for a living, literally in charge of 100 lives and 70 million pounds worth of machine. He didn't work out that there were phones beside the lifts on every level. Story 42. My dad told me about a story of how he once slept in a hotel room in another country. The layout was different. So the toilet was where the usual entrance was, and the entrance was where the toilet usually was. He once went to the toilet at night in only his boxers and had to go to reception and ask for a spare room key since he got locked out. Story 43. Not exactly nude, but a fun story to tell. I was working night audit when around 1 a.m. a guy comes to the reception pissed drunk in his underwear asking me if we sold condoms. I'd love to help a brother out, but we don't. And I didn't have any on me, so I tell him where the nearest gas station is. He straight up walks out in his underwear and is gone for a good 15 minutes. He comes back with a slight smile on his face and nods at me passing the reception and almost runs to the elevators. After about 10 minutes, he comes back, frustrated out his mind. He forgot which room the girl is in. He asked me for my help, but all he can give me is, "She's French." Thanks. That narrows it down to about 20 rooms then. I ask him his name to see if I can find him in the system, hoping they're on the same floor. Turns out he's not even a guest of ours, and after half an hour of trying to figure it out, he marches out of the hotel, still with nothing but his underwear, and now some condoms, going back to his hotel some 600 meters away. To this day, I wonder if he ever met that girl again, and more importantly, where did he have the money for the condoms? Story 44. This happened years ago when I was working as a bellman at a hotel in college. Part of my job was do outs, which was making sure Escort Ver checked out actually left the room and marking which rooms were dirty or clean. I would do this around 1 p.m., which was 2 hours after checkout time, but the list is printed at checkout time. One day, a business-looking man checks into a room on a walk-in, no reservation, alone around noon. This becomes relevant in a minute. So I'm going through the list. Procedure is to knock on the room twice, announce yourself. If no answer, use the master key to enter and check for telltale signs the person hasn't left, like escorts, luggage, etc. I walk up to a room that was marked vacant on the list, do my 2 knocks and announce, no answer. I enter per procedure only to see the businessman from earlier in the day having doggy-style sex with what I assume to be a mistress, or perhaps escort. We all make awkward eye contact, but they do not stop. I quickly turn around, say, sorry, and leave. I run downstairs to tell my manager what I just saw. He said not to worry about it, and it happens all the time. The guest never complained. I moved on with my day. The end. Story 45. Not me, but a friend of mine has worked front desk at a hotel for a few years. One time, a guy came in pretty late at night asking for a room where an escort was staying. After about an hour or so, my friend sees the guy running out into the lobby butt naked, holding his hand over his junk. My friend keeps telling him he needs to put some clothes on or leave the lobby because he cannot be there naked. He then starts acting frantic, saying he needs a key for room, whatever number, and my friend keeps telling him he can't have a key to a room that isn't under his name. He keeps getting aggressive, saying he has to have a key because the stupid git kicked him out and he needs his clothes back. Anyway, he got so aggressive and over the top that they ended up having to call the cops, and my friend got to watch this naked man explain to cops that he pissed off an escort and she won't let him get his clothes back at 2 a.m. Story 46. This is just my own embarrassing story. About 10 years ago, I was staying at a hostel in Copenhagen, and I had forgotten to set my alarm for the morning I had to check out. So I woke up late and really had to pee, so I put my keycard in the waistband of my boxers and ran to the washroom just down the hall. Unfortunately, my card had expired, and I was left stranded outside my room in just my boxers. Now, this hostel had 2 buildings, one for the rooms, and next door was the office. My only way to get to the office was to go outside on a very busy street at noon and walk next door. It took 5 seconds, but boy were those seconds ever long. As soon as I got inside, I started frantically explaining why I was in my boxers to the young woman at the desk. We ended up having a good laugh. Story 47. Probably more PG than you're looking for, but once this guy ordered room service and answered the door in only his skimpy underwear. It was just soup, so it doesn't take very much time at all. Then called back down to have more crackers delivered. Still only in his skimpy green underwear. Not explicit, but he was definitely trying to put on a show. No thanks. Story 48. Not me, but my mom. She works as a night shift manager. After all the guests had checked in for the evening, she got a call from one asking her to send the pizza guy up to his room once he arrives because he's already cozy in bed. My mom refused as it's against policy to send people up and told the guy he had to come and collect the pizza himself. The guy was irritated, yelled, and then hung up. My mom went to go do her usual rounds along the floors, and as she was walking down the hall, she caught the guy running from his room butt naked and heard his girlfriend laughing hysterically from their room. Story 49. I'm not hotel staff, but when I was in maybe 10 or 11 years old or so, I went on vacation with my parents to Daytona. It was spring break, and the hotel we were staying at was absolutely full of younger people partying. I remember walking with my mom up the stairs from the pool area to our room. In the stairwell, there were two girls topless making out. I remember one girl's hand being inside the other girl's bikini bottom. My mom immediately tried to cover my eyes as we walked past, but I couldn't see where I was walking and started tripping up the steps. It was a super embarrassing moment to experience with your mother. Story 50. I used to work security at a 5-star hotel. Every year, we would be booked up for an entire weekend by this super expensive private college. Basically, there would be like 1,800 drunk, horny 21-year-olds running amok. I found them having sex in ice rooms, construction zones, and hallways. Usually, they were always cool about it. But being from such a prestigious university, you always have your, "Do you know who my father is?" Shrill, spoiled girls. What made it even better was that most of those kids weren't actually staying with us, so we were able to kick them out. That weekend was always a crap show. Story 51. My father-in-law was away in business. He got pretty drunk and went to pee in the night. He accidentally went out into the hallway before he realized and was locked out. Still busting to pee, he went to the fire stairway, this locked behind him. He was now naked in the stairwell. Eventually, he made it to the bottom of the stairs and somehow ended up on the street. Still pretty drunk, but sobering up. He went in the front door of the hotel, grabbed the paper from a coffee table, and held it around his loins back and front. He made his way to the front desk and asked for another key card. They didn't even bat an eyelid or acknowledge anything weird. Story 52. Forget the halls. I used to work for some LAS Vegas resorts, and there'd be people stark naked on the casino floor every other night. Johnny Carson's sidekick Ed McMahon used to come down from his suite drunk with his robe open. Drew Barrymore came down completely nude and blitzed out of her mind. Story 53. Not me, but one of my friends used to work in hotel service, and I've been told many stories of walking into a room and the guest is butt naked. They told me one story of how they were delivering food to a room when two completely naked guys opened the door in their full glory and then proceeded to tell my friend to push the cart into the hotel room. Pretty sure they just looked to the ground and hoped that they didn't get a glance of Pin on her way. Story 54. Happened at least once a week. Worked engineering for a former 5-star 5-diamond hotel in South Florida. We used to call a code T on the radio to inform staff someone was either naked or having sex somewhere. Have endless stories. But the one with Tara Reid wandering a floor naked looking for the vending machine for ice is a personal favorite. Security escorted her back to her room, and my room service coworker brought her enough ice so she wouldn't have to leave the room again. Story 55. Went to bed around 8 p.m. in a hotel after having a few too many on a midday patio hop. Got up to go to the bathroom, and all of a sudden realized I was in the hall. Naked. It was pretty early still, and I had to walk into the main lobby with my hands cupping my balls and get a key. They wanted ID. The dude had to accompany me back to my room to see my ID. Story 56. I used to learn how to be a chef in a small hotel in my city. Sometimes when we haven't been booked out, I had to the early shift that started at 5 a.m. So I unlocked the door just to discover that a young couple having sex right on top of the reception. That was a weird situation for all of us, I guess. They gave me big tips as they checked out a few hours later, so I don't tell my boss. So win-win. Story 57. I can actually contribute. I was a maid for about a year. I rarely saw nude folks in the hall, but often I'd have elderly men answering my housekeeping. Not completely nude. My favorite is when an elderly man opened the door butt naked and asked if I wanted to come in. Then his nude wife, I assume, came out and reiterated my invitation. I did not service that room. Story 58. My hotel is down the road from a major university in my city. Every year, around orientation week, there is a group of people that jump the fence to our pool naked. They swim around and make some noise for like 5 minutes around midnight, then jump back over. Last year, I counted 38 naked people. I love going out there to greet them and tell them to leave. Story 59? Not a worker. But when I was in a hotel with my boyfriend, we told the front desk checkout would be at 11. We were naked up and walking around, and the housekeeping didn't even knock. They just barged in. They looked quite shocked, and I felt so violated now. Complained to the front desk and got 3 nights free stay 8. Story 60. I've walked out the hotel room in my sleep. Had underwear on, though. Awoke in the elevator. Colleague did the same thing, except he took the fire exit and had to climb down 4 sets of stairs and go through the restaurant nightclub area to get back to the reception to get a new key.